Adjustments. Call to order the regular session of the April 26, 2017 Long Hill Township Committee meeting at 7:43. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could call the roll, please.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Maringolo?
Here.
Committeeman Pasurchia?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Present.
Mayor Schuler?
Present. We are going to, I have a proclamation first for Arbor Day. The Shade Tree group will be, or Shade Tree Commission will be planting a tree to commemorate the founding of Long Hill Township in 1886 as part of the Arbor Day celebration, and there will be a plaque in accordance with that. Do we know where that is yet? Or have we...
The tree, I believe, currently planted out in front.
Okay, so it's right out front. Okay, excellent. So right out front, there will be a donated tree for Arbor Day. Whereas in 1854, J. Sterling Morton moved from Detroit to the area that is now the state of Nebraska. There were virtually no trees in the area, and he noticed that trees were needed to act as windbreaks to stabilize the soil and to provide shade from the sun, fuel, and building materials. Morton planted many trees around his own home, but wanted to encourage and enable others to do the same. And whereas the Nebraska State Board of Agriculture, meeting on January 4, 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed a holiday called Arbor Day to plant trees on April 10, 1872, and prizes were awarded to the counties and individuals who planted the most trees on this day. A total of about 1 million trees were planted in Nebraska on the first Arbor Day in 1874. And whereas in 1885, Arbor Day became a legal holiday and was moved to April 22nd, which was Morton's birthday. But in 1970, former President Richard Nixon proclaimed the last Friday in April as National Arbor Day during his presidency. Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees increase property values in our township, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, Cornell Schuler Jr., Mayor of the Township of Long Hill, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 28th as Arbor Day. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote well-being of this and future generations. We have two township committee appointments. The first is for an archivist, Samuel Cornish, and the second is for the township historian, Phoebe Cornish Sharp. Both 3-year terms to expire December 31st, 2019.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the HPAC committee did an exhaustive search, and these two individuals stepped forward to take over the responsibilities. They're longtime residents, lifelong residents of the township, and are enthusiastic about the roles and are looking forward to performing the duties. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint the archivist and historian as noted in the agenda.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Maringolo?
Yes.
Committeeman Pasurchia?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Schuler?
Yes. So we are going to skip the committee liaison reports for a moment and go straight to the consent agenda. Resolutions 17-1 through 9 through 17-141.
Move Resolution 17-129 through 17-141 as stated in the agenda, with specific note on Resolution 17-140, accepting the resignation of our Town Administrator, Neil Henry, with regrets.
Yes.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey.
Unfortunately, yes.
Committeeman Marangolo.
If I say no, does he stay? Yes.
Committeeman Pasurkia.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray.
Yes.
Mayor Schuler.
Yes, but I recuse from Resolution 17-137. And I'd like to vote no on 140, but I can't.
I'm going to phone call away.
I know. So at this time, we now have swearing in of Officer Novotny. Chief, if you'd like to come up and...
Accommodations first?
Okay.
Sure, please. You've got the floor.
Right, sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right now, I'd just like to introduce the two detectives within the Long Hill Township Police Department. They're going to receive a certificate of commendation, but prior to me presenting it to the two detectives, I'm going to call up Lieutenant Naga, who's going to give a brief description of the incident that took place that led to them getting this award. Lieutenant Naga.
Good evening, everybody. As most of you are aware, on February 25th of this year, 2017, our officers were confronted with a difficult call. I believe Sergeant Bracetta was the supervisor on scene that evening. Initially came in as a panic alarm and was handled as a standard alarm initially. Upon their arrival, they determined that there was a bigger issue. And the situation revealed itself in such that it was an armed robbery suspect who had entered the store, demanded a sum of money from the clerk, and upon initial hesitation from the clerk, a round was discharged in the direction of the clerk directly behind him. Shortly thereafter, it developed over days and over weeks. It turned out to be a cooperative effort, not only across the different municipalities, but also across different counties. Our search took us through different suspects, different routes of investigation, and unfortunately, shortly thereafter, there was an incident in Warren Township, providing us additional details, and a prior incident in Washington Township, Warren County. With a collective and a cooperative effort between all three municipalities, all three counties, Morris County Prosecutor's Office, Somerset County Prosecutor's Office, and Warren County Prosecutor's Office, we were able to gather all the facts to determine two suspects involved. One is Frank Klein, and the other one was Mr. Demansky, who was actually a prior resident of Long Hill Township. Mr. Demansky's involvement was that he was an accomplice, provided transport. Mr. Klein was the person who actually committed the armed robbery in the country farms. But again, due to the cooperative effort amongst all the agencies involved in the county prosecutor's office, we were able to arrest the suspects and charge them accordingly. And that's the gist of the investigation.
Okay, without further ado, I'd like to call up Detective Gary Bauer. And I'll just read what the award says. Two suspects, Frank Klein and David Dombrowski, were arrested in connection with the February 25th armed robbery of the Country Farms convenience store, where Klein pointed a handgun towards the clerk, demanded money, and discharged one round in the direction of the clerk. The Long Hill Township investigative section was an integral part of capturing the two armed assailants. Lieutenant Naga and Detective Gary Bauer worked tirelessly on leads, public relations, and developed evidence throughout the investigation that ultimately resulted in the men being charged with one count of first-degree robbery and one count of conspiracy. Congratulations. Just before Municipal Clerk Debbie Brooks and, are you coming up? Were you the one coming up? Well, I saw you getting up before for the swearing in.
No, I ran in the back.
Oh, okay. I just want to introduce Officer Novotny. He's a resident of Montville. He's a graduate of Monmouth University down in Monmouth County. He went to the Ocean County Police Academy where he became a special Class 2 officer. He then served for Seaside Heights Police Department as a Special 2 before coming here through the selection process. And I'm glad to call him up now for his swearing in. And if you'd like to bring up whoever you would like to witness, Dad.
I, Richard Novotny, do solemnly swear
I, Richard Novotny, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
and with the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of the police officer
perform all the duties of the police officer
of the Township of Long Hill Police Department
of the Township of Long Hill Police Department
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and that I will not use my office
and that I will not use my office
to grant preferential treatment,
to grant preferential treatment,
nor to seek personal gain,
nor to seek personal gain,
favor, or advantage not available to the general public.
favor, or advantage not available to the general public.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. Jack, great seeing you. Thank you. Hey, congratulations. Thank you.
Officer, congratulations. All right, Jack.
That's quite all right. Congratulations. Jack, that's perfect. Congratulations. Get tickets to the Township Connection. Or the attorney. Congratulations.
What are the attorneys say?
We tried.
All this is happening because Officer Novotny did such a nice job with me at the street fair on Sunday.
Congratulations, sir.
One more smile.
But anyway, family.
Jeez.
You should be down. Well, maybe not. No.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
They could have gone up too.
Yeah.
Something coming up here.
We can send him the video, right? Send him a link to the video because I think his mom was in here or something.
Yeah.
So I could just send him the link. It's up on YouTube right afterwards anyway. It's on YouTube, so
Did you see that?
What's on YouTube?
our videos are on YouTube.
I went over and I have a bunch of pictures. Did you
They
get
are?
Long Hill TV on YouTube. All right, I'll send you the link.
Because we had that whole thing? Oh, no, that, never mind. I was thinking about.
I mean, they're on the website as well, but there's also a YouTube page with it.
Is that right?
where the videos are uploaded to. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, send me that link, please.
I have been informed that we need to make a correction to the recent township committee appointments.
Because we are live in the township, the agenda is just slightly incorrect. We appointed Samuel Cornish as the historian and Phoebe Cornish-Sharp as the archivist. The agenda had the titles reversed, so we apologize.
So I would do a
Jack says
motion
we
just to correct the record.
So, motion to correct the record with the proper titles?
So just to be clear, Samuel Cornish is the historian,
Correct.
and Phoebe Cornish is the archivist.
Correct.
Second, who's the HPAC liaison?
Yes, I'll take...
He caught the correction.
I'll take that's a boo-boo on me.
Second the boo-boo, and second the appointments.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Maringolo?
Yes.
Committeeman Sergio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Schuler?
Yes. So we have here tonight for a presentation of the high school budget, Elizabeth Jewett and Tim Sties, along with Lisa DeMizio, who is our Long Hill Township Board of Ed rep.
Good
Hi,
evening.
how are you?
Thank you so much for having us, Mayor and council members. Thank you for your service. We sure know how to clear a room. This will be a little less exciting than what just took place. That was really nice. It's nice to see you adding new faces to the police department, and they're always very cooperative and very helpful when we have to deal with them in times of crisis. So we appreciate that. We will be brief. It's a little different, than years ago, where there's no longer a vote on the budget, as long as we stay within the constraints that are placed upon us by the state, which also means that there's really not too much to share about the budget, because so much of our budget is non-discretionary. So there's only a little bit that we actually get to really look at each year. Our projected enrollment for next year is about 2,046 students. And so we are seeing a little bit of a decline in our enrollment. In terms of what will be new in the budget next year, in addition to our capital improvements and our facility upgrades that we look to do on an ongoing basis to maintain and enhance our facility, technology is the other piece that we are obviously always trying to keep up with and keep up with the students in terms of that. So we do have a number of technology enhancements, and one of the benefits of adding technology in terms of the budgetary benefits is that we can do it through a lease purchase, so it's not a one-time hit to our budget, but it's spread out over a number of years. And in terms of expanding our technology infrastructure, that includes expanding our wireless infrastructure throughout the building. So what we are really trying to provide is a ubiquitous access to wireless and to our technological resources throughout the building and throughout all of our classrooms. So one of the major changes next year, major upgrades, is that we are looking to pilot a one-to-one Chromebook initiative for our incoming 9th graders. All 4 of the K-8 districts have started a one-to-one initiative for their middle school, so all of the current 8th graders are used to having their own Chromebook that they can take home with them. So we are looking to expand that to the high school. Our teachers already and our students have been using the Chromebooks for a number of years, so they're already familiar with the technology, and as we continue to purchase them for our Chromebook carts, which get used on a daily basis, there's never any available. So we're looking to start a one-to-one initiative with the 9th grade students. And in terms of upgrading the technology available in the classrooms, we've also been trying to get every classroom online with the same technology. And so last year we started replacing some of our more outdated projectors and rooms that didn't even have projectors with smart boards that are much easier to hook up. They don't require all of the wiring and all of the labor. So we are going to continue adding those to the classrooms as well. And those have been very well received by the students and the teachers. all of this, whenever we're looking at preparing the budget and compiling the budget, we obviously look to our strategic plan, where we've outlined our major goals and priorities for the district. Then that's what the administration and the board uses as our compass when we are justifying expenditures. And some of the fruits of those expenditures, we've outlined a couple of them here, but I'm sure you see in the paper how well our students do in all areas, everything from athletics to arts to science and technology to the humanities. We actually, the indicators I have on here are already becoming outdated as we're getting our new performance reports in this year. We just were informed that our students, our current juniors, our current sophomores and juniors take the PSAT, but when you're a junior, you can qualify for National Merit Scholarship money and as National Merit semifinalists and finalists. So we were just informed that we had a record number of 68 of our students qualify as National Merit semifinalists, and that's the most we've ever had. We had 46 this past year, and that was the most we had ever had. So our students continue to excel and amaze. They are awe-inspiring to me every day when I'm there, and we're very lucky to be part of such a supportive community. And we really do have a world-class staff and outstanding students and families. So I'm going to now turn it over to Mr. Stives, who's going to give you some more of the detail on the numbers.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and members of the Town Council, pleasure to be here. And Neil, I'm sorry to see you go. Really, it's always a pleasure working with you.
It's a pleasure working with you too.
I wish you luck where you're going. And again, I'm really like them. I'm sorry to see you go.
Thanks.
And with that, our budget this year is $46,453,000. One of the things I keep talking to folks is that I have to put an asterisk on that. If you recall, last year we came to you with the idea of a referendum, a special referendum project, and the referendum project was primarily to get state aid to fund the replacement of our turf field. And I'm happy to say that worked out exactly as planned. One of those rare things in life that happens in public finance, right? So we replaced $1 million field, and we received over $300,000 of state debt service aid. And we have one debt service payment, and that's in July. So embedded in this budget is a $950,000 debt service payment that's being paid by $330,000, about $320,000 of debt service aid, and then the balance from our own capital reserve, which is a surplus from us. So that whole project was funded through our surplus and debt service aid. So we got that 40% debt service aid that we were hoping to get. And that project is completed. The kids were playing on it. In fact, they're probably on it today. And it worked out well. So within this budget is that $1 million number, so that kind of drives that percentage up. And it's not from tax dollars or state aid or whatnot. It's basically funded internally and through the debt service aid. The one thing that we did struggle with this year is we had to go beyond 2% on the tax levy. We went to 4%, and we can do that because we have tax levy waivers that are available to us. There's not many anymore, but one of them is health care. If you go beyond what the state health care plan goes, if your percentage rises above that, you can take a waiver for that, which we did there. And if you have banked cap from waivers you didn't use in the past, you can do that. This is the first time in 7 years we've gone beyond 2%. The board deliberated heavily on it. We were very concerned. They're concerned. In fact, they've formed a committee, a long-range committee, to plan for the future to try to sustain that 2% or under if we can. But we did have to go to 4% this year. And the three things that really drove that is one that I've already mentioned. One was the health care. Our health care went up 11%. We had about 4 years where we had the state-imposed Chapter 78 contributions that were incremental. And those 4 years went away. And then we had 2 years where we changed from Horizon to Aetna and lowered our premium by and saved about $600,000. But those things have kind of now leveled off. So now we were faced with 11%, and 11% for us is about $500,000, just to give you some numbers. So that was one of the drivers. Another driver was, and I'll mention that the board is very appreciative and supportive of our special education students, we all do recognize there's a cost to it. And our out-of-district placements, which are very hard to control, has gone up in the recent years. For example, 2 years ago, we paid $1.6 million for out-of-district tuition. Next year, we're projecting $2.3 million. And that's quite a jump, and it's very hard to fund, and it's very hard to stop. We meet extensively with the K-8 schools to try to keep as many kids in our district as possible, obviously because it's more cost-effective for us. But we can't always do that. And when the kids have, they're more higher on the spectrum, it's very difficult to keep them in district. And of course, they have a strong advocacy group, so we do have some times where we're in court on those type of things, but it kind of goes both ways. It's very we welcome the students. We and we have a great program in house, but we can't always keep them in house, and unfortunately, there's a cost to it. And then the third thing is state aid. Our state aid, when I go back to 09-10, was $1.6 million. Next year projected, $992,000. So we haven't actually got back to where we were in 09-10. We're not even there. We're not even, we're a little more than halfway there. And it was flat this year, again. So those are the three things that really hurt us this year. That kind of forced us to go beyond the 2%. Our decline in enrollment was not enough. So it wasn't enough for us to cut, certain programs and staffing. We didn't add any staffing, but we're kind of at that point where, once it drops more, we're going to have to look at these programs, we're going to have to look at staffing, and that's one of the things the board, that's why one of the reasons that we're looking at that committee structure to look at a long-range plan to try to get us back to where we want to be. And just a couple of things that I did mention. We are getting the $320,000 of debt service aid for the turf field, but we're also getting $360,000 each year for the 2013 referendum project, so that's still in play. And finally, the tax impact for Long Hill Township, if I take the average from last year and compare it to the average of this year, the increase is $88 per that average home. And as you know, sometimes it's partly from our budget, but it's also partly from the regional allocation that changes every year. And Long Hill actually did increase just a bit, the allocation just a bit. A little increase in Warren, a little increase in Long Hill, and actually Watchung went down a little bit. Our information for the budget is on our website. You can see a lot more detail there. This is only a brush stroke look, but on our website, I would encourage you to take a look at it, and if you have questions, please, at any time, ask. And I thank all of you for taking the time to listen to us.
If I could ask just a couple questions. The $400,000 approximately of funding for a new computer and infrastructure improvements, could you kind of characterize what exactly that is for the?
Yeah, we have the one-to-one Chromebooks is for an entire grade, so it's 500 Chromebooks. And then we have teacher laptops. I think we have about 70. And then there's an infrastructure. The infrastructure that we're talking about is we're bridging our remote locations, the fields in particular, for security purposes. We want to get wireless down to those areas so we can add security in those, and cameras and whatnot in those particular spots. We're also adding network switches, which are, to me, like servers. We're asking approximately 10 of them, just to replace ones that were old. So that's really the thrust of the technology stuff.
So every kid going to high school now is going to get a Chromebook?
Every incoming, we're going to do a class a year, so it's starting with next year's incoming 9th grade class. Then the plan, assuming all goes well, projecting that all will go well, that will happen with each incoming ninth grade class from there on out.
And is that an asset that they are assigned and have forever, or is that returned to the school, or what happens to that asset?
The lifespan of the Chromebooks is about 4 to 5 years, so it should last for their entire high school career. And one of the benefits of doing the one-to-one initiative, obviously our use of technology and the hardware we have has increased exponentially, but our technology department has not. And with this, if we purchase, there'll be a fee. The elementary schools do this now, where the parents pay a small fee for insurance, so that way if anything happens, we actually send it out. We'll have a loaner to give the student, but it gets repaired, it gets replaced, whatever needs to get done.
So what happens to the Wi-Fi infrastructure for the school? Inside the buildings, I've heard mixed reports.
That's why we're upgrading it, actually. That's part of adding these switches, is it can sometimes be spotty when too many folks are on at once. And part of the issue we have now is so many people have multiple devices that it clogs it up, where by going one-to-one, we'll actually be able to limit the access to just those devices. So that'll help as well.
And what is the educational program that's now going to be delivered through these things? How is that going to work? And give us a sense of what you're trying to do here.
So our teachers, what's nice about this is we're not rolling out the use of Chromebooks at the same time we're rolling out the one-to-one initiative. We started purchasing Chromebooks and using them probably 3 years ago.
I'm sorry, if I can interrupt for just a
Yes.
second. I'm not sure I understand what the difference is between Chromebooks and the one-to-one program.
Got it. So does everyone know is everyone familiar with what a Chromebook is? It basically gives you access to all Google apps.
Just basically a web browser.
Yes, a Google web browser. So a laptop device that gives you access to Google apps. 3 years ago, we rolled out use of Google Apps in the school. We made the transition from our old email to Gmail, and teachers use Google Classroom, and all of the Google apps are what we are using in classes. It's very effective for collaboration between teachers and students, between students. So they have been using Google Apps, and we have purchased, how many Chromebooks have we purchased in the past 3 years? I mean, probably several hundred. Part of the impetus for purchasing them was when we had to implement park testing 3 years ago, but we purchased them also to be used throughout the building. So the teachers and the students are already familiar with using the Chromebooks. The difference will be next year, the ninth graders will actually have a Chromebook that will be their own, that they will take home and bring to school, rather than in those classes bringing in the Chromebook carts and giving them out to the students. So our learning curve will be with the one-to-one piece of it in terms of managing that, and we still will increase the professional development for the teachers, which we would do regardless of if we were doing a one-to-one initiative to enhance their use of Google Apps in the Chromebook. But we're not going to be teaching them and the students to use Google Apps and the Chromebooks while we're doing this. It's really just the one-to-one piece that will be new to us. So the managing each student having their own device.
Okay. I think. You mentioned your healthcare increase in your budget is about 11%. What are you guys trying to do to mitigate that for next year?
Well, next year, we're pretty much where we are. The following year, we have a pretty active broker, Brown & Brown. We've had them for a couple of years now, but we're going to have to look at, I don't want to say too much, we're going to have to look at ways where we can negotiate our way into better options. One being the state health plan, because right now it would be difficult for us to move to state health. So that's one thing I think we really need to strongly look at, because our plan is actually above that right now. So it's kind of difficult to move there.
The equal or better clause.
Yeah, I don't think I can. That's why I'm saying that's one thing we're looking to actively negotiate down the road, which would be 18, 19. So I think that would put us in a better position, and we're working on a way to get there. But the key, unfortunately, healthcare is a major problem, I think, for everyone. And I think the best thing to do is to constantly discuss it with the union to try to mitigate ways. And the one, I mean, the one thing I as a financial person, which we all kind of think of, is about Chapter 78 and the way that played out. A contribution to a premium for an employee is a motivation for them to also do what we're doing in that, we need to lower this premium because they're paying for it. So the rules have changed since Chapter 78 came in for financial people like myself. I could tell you that has helped because we moved from Horizon to Aetna. If I had tried to done that 5 years ago or 10 years ago before Chapter 78, the roof would have caved in. I would have had 9,000 people pitchforks, but we didn't. When we moved from Horizon to Aetna, I got a couple comments, okay, because the bottom line was they were looking at the premium themselves, the employees.
Right.
So I think that we all have that in common now, and the board has remained with Chapter 78, which is great. So I think that will help us. And
there's no question that quality health care is an important issue that everybody's concerned about. It's just containing costs is when you talk about 11% on a big staff, you're talking about a big number.
It's over $500,000. It's very difficult to manage, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, just for numbers, our contribution for Chapter 78, the projected is $1.3 million. That's what the staff pays for the premium.
Okay.
Just one quick question. You referenced the one-off for the field, $941,000, so the total budget is $46.5 million.
Right.
That number, and I'm not familiar with how it works for the high school, what is your base for next year in terms of the 2%? Is it 46.5? In which case?
No. The 2% is based on the actual tax levy.
Okay.
So it's, I could tell you the number, but it's not,
It's not on the total budget.
I don't need it exactly.
It's I think it's in the 30s, but it's based, the 2% is based on
the levy itself. So.
Yeah. The levy is, and it's on the operating levy, not on the debt service. So it's $30,500,000.
Okay.
That's the tax levy, which is actually something that's, I talked about the state aid is 3%. So you're looking at a 40, and if you take, it's about a $41 million operating budget, $30 million from property taxes, about $7 million from tuition from Greenbrook. So just do the math. We don't get a lot of state or federal aid.
Well, I mean, that's a problem for most towns like us throughout the state. Believe me, we speak with the governor's office on this all the time. Of course, there's a limit to what he can do.
Absolutely.
And I think you referenced that we have less students today than we did, say, in 2010. And I guess the aid on a proportional basis is going to come off a little bit anyway. It's minimal to begin with.
Yeah, they really haven't funded the formula, though, based on students. They just, we've been getting the same amount every year, other than 10, 11, where they dropped us completely off the map.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but there's nothing anybody on this committee or anybody on the school board can do.
Nope.
Other than complain. By the way, thank you for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Gentlemen, anything? I had a quick question. You had said enrollment had dropped and has been dropping. What was the peak?
We were
And
at
when?
about 2,300.
Okay.
And that's close to our capacity. We actually can, according to the architect figures, we can fit 2,500, but if you were there when it was 2,300, I don't know. It's a little tight.
Paper and reality.
My daughter says the hallways are very crowded now.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
But it was, can you imagine 2,300? It was tough. It was tight.
So we've lost 10%-ish of the student population over, when was the peak?
It's before I got here, probably 2012 or
yeah,
so.
it was-
2012, so in 5 years we lost 10%.
Yeah.
And we'll probably continue to lose numbers
Well,
because, if you look at
K is
the lower
down.
grades, they're just starting to
Right.
increase enrollment at the kindergarten, first grade levels. So it'll be
Yeah,
a few years.
And the Warren budget, the Warren K-8, their 5-6 rate, 5th and 6th grade is quite a drop, which we haven't seen yet. So
Yeah.
that's coming to us in 3 years.
We have a grade like that, too. I don't remember which one it is, but we have a grade like that
Right.
as well.
So all the other increases that you've mentioned, they kind of overcome any reductions you might have gained from the enrollment drop?
What we have been looking at for the past couple of years, as enrollment has decreased a little bit each year, is we are looking closely at staffing each year, and we've probably lost 3 to 4 positions each year over the past 3 years. What we are trying to do is to do it through attrition rather than reductions in force, so that when somebody retires, we look very carefully to see if we need to replace that position. So that we wait till the scheduling process is over and look at how we are organizing our sections. So we are very closely looking at that because, and we've done several of these presentations, so I can't remember if you mentioned that tonight or if it was last night at our board meeting. But obviously, when you're looking to make savings in the budget, personnel is where you're going to see the most significant savings. So we really are carefully looking at that to see, how we can shave a little off of that each year.
I would imagine personnel and healthcare are the majority of your budget.
Yeah,
Yes.
over to 70%.
Yes,
As is ours. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. And
Thank you.
Mr. Henry, good luck, and we will miss working with you.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch.
All right. Well, let me jump back to get everything back in order again. Committee liaison reports. I'll start on the left.
The HPAC committee has been working hard on the Tombstone project. They hopefully will have some additional information on that soon. But they would like to come to a future meeting to talk about something new they'd like to introduce that essentially would document the exterior of historic buildings in town so that we capture an image for historical purposes. Not quite sure how the logistics of something like this would work out, but they would like to come and explore the idea so that any historic building in town, we get some photographic documentation of the building before it's modified, so that over time we can keep an archive of these historical properties in town. So I've asked them to come and kind of explain it, but a future meeting.
Job for the new archivist.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
And we want to the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee would like to thank Kelly Roshto for all her service as the historian in town. She's retiring from the position as we've just reappointed someone. So we want to thank her for her service.
Okay. There's a couple of things I'll bring. Neil, you're going to give us a brief summary report, administrator's report later, because there's a couple of things I was going to ask, but I'll ask
You
later.
can ask them. I don't have a report prepared. What I was going to do was make a larger than normal transitional report for the committee to use and when I leave.
Farewell present.
Farewell present, right.
So, Mr. Mayor, would it be okay if I ask Neil? I mean, these are a couple of
please.
simple things.
Yeah.
Simple things. Somerset Street, I noticed the other day during the fair, and by the way, congratulations to everybody involved in the street fair, especially Dennis, for once again providing sunshine. I, of course, threatened him if he didn't, so that worked out wonderfully. But I noticed Somerset Street, which needs to be ready before the bike race, which is the fourth Sunday every year, as the T-shirts say. Do we know when that street's being paved?
I do not know yet, no. Some of that is predicated on the capital ordinance being adopted at the public hearing at the next meeting. Once...
Does that give us enough time? Because that...
Well, so once that's done, you have a 21-day wait period, so that brings you up to the end of May. Okay, so I can talk to Tom and
Would you mind?
either do it before or after.
Do we need to wait? We can pay
I'll defer to
the
Josh.
cash portion, right?
That's part of
It's 21
the bond
for the
ordinance.
for the bond, right?
Yes.
We can do the roads that we're going to
Right,
pay
because that's a down
cash.
payment, right?
Even
No,
though,
I mean,
even
we were planning on certain roads actually paying out of pocket.
Right, right. We can do those.
There's no 21-day wait.
okay, I
on
didn't know, Jack, because that was part of the bond
It's part of
ordinance.
the bond ordinance, and the notice
No.
said you have to wait. So, yeah, it was all part of the same ordinance, we should wait.
Okay, so we shot ourselves in the foot.
That's the way.
But we can still, work
And check
before.
with Tom, because that needs to be done first. I mean, it's not the most traveled, but the bike race can't take place if that road is...
The one upside this year is that, you're adopting your capital ordinance earlier by a couple of weeks than you've typically done. So if you've
And the
got,
road wouldn't be paved anyway until sometime in June.
Yeah, I mean-
Warm enough.
Tom would be able to call Tilcon and see if he can get on their list.
Perfect.
I know there's other situations where he's anticipated special events and he's had to wait, but I think the goal here is to get the street paved because they did some work there last year with the water company.
Okay.
So,
Now, and this, I don't suppose you have the answer for tonight, but I'd like to get that, and I can call myself, I suppose. Valley Road, I've received a series of complaints for Valley Road, one of which, one of the complainants was me, because I think I have to go to see the dentist. It's awful. And now, I don't know what would normally happen when the utility comes in and does a road. Do they normally do it, we're working with the county's going to pave it beautifully from, I think, county to county, the county lines, right?
County to mountain.
Or to mountain, I guess it
Mountain.
is. But when is that going to be done? Because that road east to west is awful.
well, it's funny bringing that up because I drove over to get something to eat at ShopRite and I noticed it's like driving on the surface of the moon.
Exactly.
I will make a call to folks up at the county and see if we can get
I saw somebody in the county, patching a couple of things, but
How's the north-south extension of Valley Road if east to west is horrendous?
what's that?
You said east to west of Valley Road's horrendous, but how's the north to south Valley Road?
Oh, north to south is perfect. Keep it up. I'm going to ask you about Myersville Road. So when's Myersville Road? Because that's on the schedule too. All right, that's it. And I was appointed the Girl Scout liaison by a friendly advisor. So I don't know if you have it. Do you have the thing for Sunday in Cantor Park? If you
No,
don't,
I do not.
all right. So it's April 29th. I presume that's Sunday. What is April 29th?
Still Sunday.
Sunday, 9:30 to 12:30, Canterfield, Gillette. Pets are encouraged to bring their owners.
Sunday, sorry.
It's Saturday, yeah, okay. It's Saturday. Pets are encouraged to bring their owners for a walk in the park to support Girl Scout Troop 4232 Silver Award Project. Plenty to, oh geez. Andrea Briggs, if you're watching, you owe me. Plenty to bark about. $5 admission.
What's the time on that again?
9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Canterfield, right back here. That's it.
Field 2.
What?
Field 2, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's field 2. Don't bring your dogs onto the turf field, please.
Matt?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Dennis, if you will. Thank you, sir. Let's see. First, just like to thank the fire department. They did a nice job. Both Millington and Fire. Millington and Sterling had 3 trucks at the Little League Parade, and the kids love seeing it. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for volunteering your time and bringing the apparatus down.
You've got an email on your screen.
Oh. That's all right.
It doesn't come out anyway, by the way.
It's a personal email, sir.
Yeah.
Next, we go to the infamous DPW report. This is a reminder that they started delivering mulch this week, last Friday. So delivering mulch on Friday, it's $100 to residents for a truckload of this size. It's free to residents. You can go get as much as you want, just pack it and get it yourself. They're not going to load it up, but you can go get as much as you want whenever you want. What else is going on? They started cleaning up all the township properties, lawns, the parks, things like that. They drove another load of styrofoam down, so I'm looking forward to a report in 2 or 3 months to see how many more tons our townspeople have managed to recycle. And please, ladies and gentlemen, bring it down to the DPW. It's a shed. It's always open as long as the DPW is open. They're not picking it up at curbside. They recycled 853 fluorescent bulbs at the county this week. Saturday from 8 to 12, and sorry if I jump on guys, I'm shocked he forgot about this. The DPW is, in conjunction with the Shade Tree Commission, is handing out 2,000 seedlings or saplings. You can get 5 per family. So if you want to go down to the DPW and get 5 saplings or seedlings, Saturday 8 to 12, right after, and you can go right to the Girl Scout event after with your dog. They began draining the lake, so Jeff Cashel over at ShopRite, you're very concerned about this, and I can tell you they started draining the lake. Jeff was on my case about it 2 weeks ago when I was shopping. And I believe that is it. Oh, and finally, the, much-awaited garbage bag program is starting on May 5th.
May 1st.
What is it?
I think it's May 1st. Right?
May 1st, yes. So the guidelines, I'm sure they're on the website, but basically you buy the garbage bag or bags. You don't have to call the town and put it, you don't have to call the town and get permission to do it. They're sold at Town Hall. It's $6 a bag. Come by early and often because we have plenty of them to get rid of. They'll have the Long Hill logo on them so that the Midco knows to pick them up. Bags may be filled with extra household trash only. No construction debris is allowed. Obviously, you can place them right along the curbside with your garbage cans on the weekly garbage collection or the bulk collection day. And like I said, do not notify Town Hall or the DPW in advance. The Midco knows. They see the bag that has the logo on it, pick it up. It's not going to be an issue. And they're only going to pick them up. Let's see, the garbage truck driver will know. He already knows, or she knows, Dontel, I think, in his nose to pick them up. So as soon as that bag's out, he'll get them. So again, May 1st. Bags are $6 a pop. Put any not construction waste, leave them on the curbside, and you don't have to make any calls. They will get picked up. Thank you, sir.
And Matt, there's no limit to the number of bags you can put out. Is that right?
That is right.
Apparently that's true.
Okay.
Thank you for clearing that up. I did not know.
Nothing
Brendan?
for me.
Okay, nothing for me. Moving on to ordinances for second reading and adoption. Ordinance 39-17, ordinance increasing escrow deposit for completeness review and amending Section 180 of the Township Land Use Ordinance entitled Applications, Fees, Escrow Deposits, Guarantees, Development Fees, and Improvements. I'd like to open that to the public for comment on Ordinance 397-17. Seeing none, I will close the discussion to the public. Any comments from the committee or a motion?
Motion to move ordinance 397-17 as stated in the agenda.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Marino?
Yes.
Committeeman Pasurcia?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Schuler?
Yes. Ordinance, second reading, adoption, ordinance 398-17, ordinance vacating a portion of Mercer Street. This is a paper street, easterly sideline of Warren Avenue, and then proceeding east to its terminus at the western boundary of Lot 17, Block 11401. Opening for discussion to the public. Seeing none. Closing the discussion to the...
Hang on.
Oh, sorry, please. Come on up. This is for comments on 398-17.
Oh, sorry. It was general.
No,
No,
just
not
just related to ordinance 398-17. Oh, okay. No problem. Closing comments to the public. Any discussion?
Motion to move 398-17 as stated in the agenda.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey?
Yes.
Committeeman Maringolo?
Abstain.
Committeeman Pasurcia?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray?
Yes.
Mayor Schuler?
No. All right. Discussion items. Neil, can you brief us on the Verizon
Sure, and I just
Network node,
want
please.
to double check, Deb, I thought we were going to have a representative of
Bill
Verizon here.
Flanagan, in the
Oh,
house.
Bill is here, okay. Mr. Mayor, Bill Flanagan is here from Verizon to give the committee an overview on what we're discussing this evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Bill Flanagan with Tilson Technology, and Tilson represents Verizon Wireless throughout the state of New Jersey on this project. Project's been in process for about the last year and a half or so. Essentially entails the installation of what they refer to as small network nodes. They're small antennas about 2 feet in height, mounted to the top of wooden utility poles. They're interconnected by fiber optic cable back to an existing cell tower in the area, and they're really designed to augment the tower. They're out there picking up a signal and basically offloading capacity. It's designed really to increase bandwidth. And really the purpose is to increase the capacity to transmit data. With the number of people using handheld devices, finding that the existing infrastructure just can't support the amount of data that's being transmitted, so they need additional antennas out there to transmit the signal. In Long Hill, we have Verizon right now has two nodes proposed, and I'm not sure if I think Catherine, did she send over some information
Yeah, they're all
today?
in your packet.
And I have some copies if anybody needs those. Anybody? Okay. So there's two nodes proposed for Long Hill.
Are these, just out of curiosity, I'm sorry to interrupt, are these going to fill coverage gaps, or are these just to increase capacity?
So it's primarily for capacity, primarily.
Okay. Because there's what, 3 towers in town?
No, I'm not even sure. I'm filling in for somebody else tonight, so I'm not really that familiar with the
Well, there's one at
township.
DPW, one at Gillette, and one in the swamp, I think, I believe. So are these gigabit LTEs capable?
Yes, they are LTE, and down the road 5G as well.
I don't know if anybody watching was impressed, but I was impressed with that question, Bruce. I don't even know what that means.
Basically, it's like 10 times the bandwidth you have now.
I'm impressed.
So there's two nodes proposed.
Where are the nodes going to be?
New Vernon.
Yeah,
New Vernon
they're in
Road,
the packet.
376 and 553.
That's the one you were talking about.
I believe 553 is a greenhouse, Great Swamp Greenhouse. The other one is the other one is south of White Bridge Road.
South of White Bridge Road?
Yes.
So one is north of White Bridge Road and one is south of White Bridge Road?
Correct.
And what's the radius that the radio can reasonably reach?
Yeah, so these are low power. They're 110 volts. The range is 500 to 1,000 feet. So it's not a long range. It's unlike a traditional tower where it's high powered and it sends a signal in a long distance. These are, low powered, and it's meant for close proximity.
So the people traveling north to the swamp are still going to have that coverage gap in the middle of the swamp? Most likely.
Well,
If that's to that greenhouse area you're referring to, yes.
so these are both actually on New Vernon, right?
Correct.
Going through the Great Swamp, where nobody lives.
Well, it sounds like the one right before White Bridge.
I'm thinking that maybe it's more of a service.
It's certainly going to
Is
fill
it
a gap.
possible that this is a service coverage increase rather than capacity?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. But the primary purpose is for data.
Because that area there, you do have a gap. I
Yep.
experienced that going on.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about it, always.
Yeah.
I have some sample pictures of what these nodes look like. Did Catherine send those over to you?
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. So these are, this is what these typically look like. They're about the same height as an existing utility pole. The two that we have proposed, by the way, are new poles, not existing. Sometimes there are reasons why they can't mount these on existing poles. It could be transformers or other cross arms that may be in the way, so it's really up to the, I think these are Verizon telephone poles. So it's up to the pole owner whether or not we can mount on an existing pole or not. So in these two cases, these are going to be new poles, but they're going to be wood and they're going to look exactly like what's there already.
And that means you have already spoken with, say, JCP&L or PSUG or something where it doesn't work to have it on the same existing pole?
Correct. They try and use existing poles wherever they possibly can. It's faster, it's cheaper. So, for whatever reason, these did not work.
What do you guys do when there's underground utilities?
As far as power goes? Or?
Do you use this type of technology? Is there an underground or a ground station type installation?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they can, if it's in an area with underground utilities, they'll run the power underground, especially if that's what code calls for.
But there would still be a pole.
There would still be a pole, yes.
Is that your
Oh, I see what you're saying. You would put a pole in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
But the power and the
It's more of a curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
You should have stuck at the gigabyte.
So Verizon is asking for consent to operate in the public right-of-way for this project.
Let me ask you, and Jack,
Yes.
you're the legal expert. Do we really have a choice? I thought the inherently public.
Yeah, that's true, but some towns are requiring some restrictions on locations, things of that nature.
So there's a hierarchy in the right of way. So what does this do to the other utilities that are in that right of way?
Well, this doesn't affect the existing utilities. So on this road, there's power lines, I think, on the east side of the road, right, that run.
Right, but isn't there a section of the pole that is that's allocated to each of the utilities?
Possibly. So
and this isn't in the municipal part of the right of way, right?
This would be the municipal right of way.
This would be, so we're giving up our access here, is what we're doing.
So Verizon Telephone would place a pole in the municipal right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
Verizon Telephone would place their pole there. Verizon Wireless would mount their equipment to the pole.
Right, and on the pole, there's sections of the pole that are available to the utilities,
So
right?
sections
Because all the utilities share poles, right?
So many
Right?
times, yes.
So
yes.
at 10 feet, there's, or at 25 feet, you have Verizon. At 30 feet, you have Comcast. At 40 feet, you have, JCP&L at the top, right?
Right.
Right. So the section in the middle is shared, right? Depending on the height.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So is Verizon taking up any of the other utilities, or is it taking the municipal access there?
So this is a new pole. There's going to be, you'd have the antenna mounted on top. There would be a radio cabinet mounted 12 feet off the ground with a disconnect and an electric meter. So those portions of the pole would be used by Verizon Wireless.
Now, New Vernon Road's a county road, so I don't even know if we have any say on that particular pole. And one thing, and I've learned a lot because of power outages and stuff, there are many poles in town that have no other utilities on it other than Verizon. So I don't think this is unique.
Right.
That there would be a pole.
Right.
But as far as New Vernon Road being a county road, I don't even know if you have to justify it to us.
Well, we still...
Whitebridge, as we learned to our chagrin, is in fact a local road.
Okay. The statute, and I'm not an attorney, but the statute reads that we need municipal consent. Whether it's the municipal road or right-of-way or the county right-of-way, we still need municipal consent to operate.
I'll have to check the statute, but I don't know how we can give consent for a county right-of-way, but I'll check it before the next meeting.
And then, once in fact, we do have some draft construction drawings. Normally what we do is submit those to the building department and file for electrical and building permits, or whatever the code is, whatever the requirement is.
I have no questions.
But my last question is, if we give consent, are we giving consent for the entire township or just for these two poles?
Well, right now, we're asking for consent. I mean, if you want to limit it to these two poles, you can. That's all we have planned at this time. Down the road, there could be other, there could be the need for additional poles in another location.
Well, my family, at the insistence of my 2 children, just upgraded to all you can eat. So those 2 poles are specifically for the Pasurch household. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
I got AT&T.
You got what?
I got AT&T, so it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so we'll ask Jack to check about whether or not it's even
needed.
We're even able to issue that approval.
Even if we do, I would suggest we make a condition on county approval, since it's county road. That can't hurt.
And the way the resolution reads, it's all subject to all the state, local, and federal permits, so.
It's more than a permit, but let's do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll introduce that at the next meeting then.
Sure.
And we'll likely, guys, do you want it restricted just to these 2 spots?
I'd want to defer to Jack on this. How is this handled? Because
Well, it's really a political question. Do you want to have more control, or give them the carte blanche to come in and put them where they want? If they're willing to just have the 2, seems to me that gives you some more control.
I have no issue with carte blanche.
It's up to you.
And just keep in mind, down the road, population increases, larger school, whatever the case may be, more shopping, more office, wherever there are, more people, more users, there could be a need for additional
mobile
infrastructure.
communication is used by everyone ubiquitously, practically. I think that by limiting it, we're limiting a service that all our residents use. So I would have no problem with giving them.
and as I said earlier, my experience on the Board of Adjustment was that in the end, it was always a presentation, but the answer was yes.
Well, that's coming in for a use variance.
Right.
So that's a whole different animal. But
And this is, just to be clear, this is specifically for, the request is for these types of, we'll call them mini repeaters, or small nodes on top of a existing or a looks like telephone pole.
Existing, I think the way the resolution reads is an existing pole or a new pole not to exceed, I think it was 10%. I think exactly how it was worded.
Yep. Okay. Yes, I did see that.
To me,
So we're not approving, a new cell phone tower.
But this is a bit of a formality, and I understand what Bruce is saying, but it's only going to take 10 minutes 20 minutes for one of you guys to come in the future. I'd rather have some control, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not that I have a problem with it, and I hear what you're saying. We're probably going to say yes anyway.
Right.
but doesn't a resolution provide they have to consult with the Public Works Director as well for the location for new poles?
I don't know if the resolution states that exactly, but by the way, if you need a Word version of that document,
please.
If I can get your card, I'll send it
Or if
to
you
you.
just send it to Debbie, she can.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
All righty.
Matt,
Yes. What?
do you care, condition, no condition,
Yeah, Burnsville was the last.
or
They did.
just the 2 nodes?
They have a lot.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 2 nodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then we'll do it for
Okay,
guys. 2
we'll do the
nodes.
resolution
Sure.
next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
right.
Any other questions, anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, you already talked about the extra residential chairs program. Little field use?
Yeah. A lot of town residents in the last 2 weeks have approached me with some Little League related issues. I explained to them briefly that the Little League has its own board and we have no control of what the Little League board does. However, upon further discussion with the people, the issues they were raising, some of them, not all of them, address the town in general with respect to our liability and exposure for activities that go on down that the Little League either sponsors, hosts, or an alternative funds. And, obviously, we all got an email about people getting kicked out of the Little League and things like that. Obviously, we can't do anything about that. I find it offensive that children are attempting to get kicked out of the league for nothing they did, yes, but that's a Little League board issue. I explained that to them. I said, just go to the board, and across the board, no pun intended, I get a similar response back to me from the people is they're scared. Quite frankly, is they're afraid to approach the Little League board because they fear retaliation by some people, not everybody, and or something's going to happen to their kids, and that's the problem. And I said, look, that you got to take up with the Little League board. You got to email Greg Rosati, the president, and let him know your concerns. However, when it comes to the township aspect, the issue was raised. There was a tournament held, I think, the day before Easter. I don't know what that date was, the Saturday before Easter. And basically, I don't know if the Little League board approved it or not, but clearly Little League field was being used. They did get I checked with Lisa Scanlon, they did get a permit to use Myersville Field. Now, the Little League obviously can do what they want, schedule everything at their own fields. However, at Myersville, as a courtesy to the Little League, it's a town field, and the Little League gets, as long as they put in a permit, the Little League always gets it under the assumption that the programs and things are going on there are benefiting the residents of Long Hill Township. So, of course, Lisa granted the permit, and obviously they have to have a league representative there at all times. So I looked into it more, and I found out during this tournament there were maybe 12, there were less than 20 Long Hill kids even playing in the tournament out of maybe the 25 to 30 teams that were there, and it's only boys. That weekend, because of the bad weather, and it was the week before the season started, we have a field shortage in town, as you know. So teams couldn't practice, and I know there were at least 2 or 3 softball teams that had to leave town to practice, and they couldn't use Myersville because teams from all over the state were playing on Myersville Field and not Long Hill Township. Now, which leads to 2 things. Because Lisa basically said we as the board can direct her to charge the Little League for using Myersville Field if it's not benefiting residents of Long Hill Township. But clearly it wasn't here. This was a profit-driven tournament. To benefit who, I don't know. But on the other hand, the other issue I had was it insured? Now, the people that came in and hosted the tournament, it's an outside organization. They kind of team up with the Little League to host these tournaments. It's the organization's a legitimate organization. They do it all over the state. However, they have insurance, but I don't think it holds the township or the Little League harmless. Basically, it says, hey, we're responsible for our negligence and or omissions and stuff we do. Now, being that all they do is schedule the tournament, maybe have umpires show up, unless an umpire is doing something inappropriate, they really have no liability. If somebody trips and falls in the fields, get hurt, something happens, the Little League's responsible for it and or the town, because it's township property. Now, on top of that, this event wasn't even disclosed to the insurance carrier that it was happening. So even though it was a special event, it was never disclosed. So God forbid something happened and a lawsuit arises. One, the Little League, the insurance carrier is going to disclaim coverage for the Little League, saying, hey, we're not covering, you didn't disclose to it. So what's next? And these lawyers get a hold of it. It's going to go, they're coming right after the township. So the township now is exposed to God knows what liability for this tournament that didn't benefit anybody in town. So, and now I was told that there's more of these tournaments scheduled within the town. So I just asked the committee, hey, can we send a letter to the Little League or do something, because as a taxpayer and a citizen, we have to protect the citizens of this town and our insurance policy, that the Little League, one, has to, I guess, give a special event permit, 2, provide all the documentation above board to show that there's a contract with the organization, the insurance policies with everybody, as well as have our town risk manager look at everything to make sure if we have any exposure and there's enough coverage in the fact. And lastly, if our residents aren't using Myersville Field, the Little League should have to pay a fee, the customary fee that anybody else from out of town would want to use the field. And once they do, and until that's done, we can't host these tournaments, because I don't think the taxpayers of this town should be liable for something that really only benefits 10 to 15 people. And that's it. And as to the Little League personnel issues, I stress you, ladies and gentlemen, you have to contact the Little League board. No, I would like to help you, but our hands are tied because it's an independent organization. So I'm sorry, but that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, my only comment on this subject is, the Little League runs tournaments that benefit the Little League, which in turn benefits all the members of the Little League. So I'm sure these tournaments are sanctioned by the Little League. If not, the Little League board has issue with this rogue event, so to speak, and I'm sure they'll take it up. But they run tournaments, and I've participated. My daughter's participated in the softball tournaments that they hold, and the revenue they raise from those tournaments goes back into the Little League funds which maintain the fields and provide for the benefit of all the Little League players over the year. So I think that the Little League is trying to encourage some growth in the baseball area, and I think there's some growing pains here, and I think there's some issues that the Little League has to deal with. And I agree with Councilman Dorsey that we want insurance coverage for the tournaments that they hold, so that the township is held harmless on these events.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Jack, will you be able to write a letter?
Yes, I'll write to the Little League and ask them for the facts.
Okay.
And I know you'll speak last, so my concern is exactly what Matt said, and Bruce and Brendan just agreed. We have to make sure the town is held harmless, I guess,
Well, the same as the chamber. The chamber runs an event, they've got to provide various certificates.
And it's no problem. If the field is available and a private organization wants to rent the field, that goes through the recreation department, and there's a fee that's paid. No, I mean, that seems pretty obvious.
Well, I'll get the facts. I don't know the facts.
I'd suggest getting the facts on that. I mean,
Fair enough.
To Bruce's point, Watch on Hill Soccer does this, Little League does this, right? You organize these mini tournaments in an attempt to collect fees from other towns that you then roll into your own programs to provide improvements. Right?
Absolutely.
So I don't think we're saying that we want to charge fees for that, right?
Not at all.
But if that's what's happening, so if we could just confirm the insurance coverage, and in fact that was a sanctioned
that's all.
fundraising event for the Little League, and then we'll
Here's the other
decision for there.
If it was sanctioned, if it's on insured event, statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of the incident. For a minor, it's till they turn 18 plus another 2 years. So we could be on the hook for the next 20 years on this. Or not 20, but 15, 16 years.
But the same for kids who play in our Little League.
Right.
Oh, but those are our kids that are insured through our Little League.
Let's find out if there's a problem, and then we'll address it.
We'll do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any old business?
Mr. Mayor, I do have two issues I just want to raise to the committee and members of the public. I did hear from Megan Feliciano from Hawkins Delafield this morning. The state controller has approved our bid for the sale of the wastewater facility. So that actually it's arrived 2 weeks sooner than we anticipated. So it gives us the ability to have a little more flexibility in our timeline. The next step is to advertise for the bid for 6 consecutive weeks. It's going to be advertised in our official paper, which is either the Echoes or the Courier News, and we have to have one advertisement in a publication. They call it a municipal publication. So myself and Megan are working to identify that publication, and if things go okay, and Debbie was out for a bit today getting some CEUs, I'd like to try to get the first ad run in the Echoes or the Courier for next week. But we're on our way. State Controller has approved it. I did speak to Debbie earlier this evening. I'm going to insert her name in place of mine to receive the bids as they come in. It's just a mechanical issue. The other subject I wanted to bring up is the Main Central Northfield Sidewalk Project. Okay, that is starting the end of the week. I'm waiting for the contractor to give us a schedule of when he'll be in the area of the schools, because my intent is to sit with the chief of police and make sure that we have pedestrian safety in the schools for when we're up there doing the work. So those are two of the main issues. Mayor, as I said, I'll have a full-blown report distributed to the committee by the end of the week, early part of next week.
So just a quick question. So if we start the advertising next week, it basically runs May and into middle of June, it sounds like?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other old business? Any new business?
Okay, so Mark Jones, a lot of you guys know him. He was the head of government affairs for JCP&L. He's now the head of operations for JCP&L. He called me and he said JCP&L is going to have a pilot program in their service area where they will provide free of charge to the town. So 4 or 5 locations they're going to provide what Bruce and I would call a supercharger, but apparently it's called an electric vehicle charging station. So they would provide it, I think it's like a 20 grand investment. They would put it someplace that makes sense, most likely someplace in the public property here. And as a pilot, they would study it for a year. If it works, they'll keep it here and gratis to the town. If not, they would remove it. So there's no, they're debating it now, but Long Hill came up on their map. So I figured I'd mention it to you.
Is this public property or private property? Like, would we recommend the Valley Mall, for example, as a charging station?
They'll work with the town and figure out where it makes most sense. The obvious one was where the library and the town hall is, and the ball field. So
We don't have to pay for any of this?
none, zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense for the train parking lots?
Yeah.
Does it make sense for the train parking lots?
I don't know. So
Although you would have...
I don't have all the details.
Well, I mean, but think if you put it here, a car can charge all day. I would come and go and charge. If ever it's a train parking, always limited parking. If somebody parks there,
They're done.
nobody else has access to it for 12 hours.
Reserve spot.
And I would think, because I think it was mentioned that I think it's a $20,000 investment, so I think it's one of those supercharger things, so it's like a 20-minute in-out. So somebody comes in, watches a ball game, charges, leaves, somebody else comes in, charges, leaves.
Yeah.
Our CFO has an electric car. Does he still have one?
No, I think he...
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
I didn't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to mention that.
In concept, that sounds great. Yeah.
Perfect. Can we switch to electric vehicles and just use charging station?
Put all 5 here.
I see an electric vehicle user in the crowded audience out there. He hasn't lifted his head. There he is.
Any other new business? All right, open the meeting to the public for comments on any matter. Limited to 3 minutes, please.
And looks.
Yeah.
I'm John Murray, 190 Skyline Drive, Millington, a resident of Long Hill Township, 53 years. Came over the George Washington Bridge in a covered wagon to find the beautiful Long Hill Township, then Passaic Township. Just a quick thoughts about things that you've heard recently about construction, new construction. I didn't know much about it, but I attended that Prism open house on at the Millington Firehouse just recently, and I thought it was a very poor presentation. I left there not really knowing much of anything, but I had hoped that it was maybe an open forum because questions were being directed at table sites, and those questions should have been shared with the general public that were there. So and also the answer that you got back from Prism and its representatives would have been nice for everyone to hear. So I know it was not your sanction, that was Prism's dealing, but they really should have an open forum where everyone in attendance could ask the right questions and hear the appropriate answers for everyone in attendance. That would be my recommendation. The other thing is, I just have a few concerns about the Tifa site itself, and you've had read about that. I know there's an Echo Sentinel article, but you know, that's historically a very unhealthy environmental site. Asbestos Superfund site at one time. And I don't know what the deed says as far as restrictions that are placed, environmental restrictions or restrictions regarding property use. I didn't see the deed, but I'd wonder what it would say. And the concerns that I have are, you know, asbestos was disposed of haphazardly around the township for many, many years. People in town for a long time often say, every time I put a shovel in the ground, that white stuff comes up. They use it as landfill, right? There are many people who could speak that are no longer with us, but there are some that probably still could. On the property itself, I doubt there's any record of where they dispose on the site, other than the main site, the encapsulated site in the back of the property, which is pretty large. We had many complaints prior to that regarding asbestos leaching into the Passaic River, and we had to address that. Testing the river, having state-authorized labs come and test the river downstream at different times. I know that. I was involved in that. But as far as demolition goes, and this is a key issue, you're always concerned about what's down there. You know, the dog buries its bone, and this stuff could be under anywhere, not only the building, but in the parking lot, the very big parking lot under the ground, under the macadam, you know, places that you're not aware of. And you'll only know that in time if construction or demolition begins at first. So you certainly don't want airborne asbestos. Now, Mr. Fuller, the environmental consultant that was hired by PRISM, said that, and this was appeared also in the paper, that they were going to have air monitoring units all around the property to check for airborne asbestos. And he also said that if they did pick up some asbestos airborne, they would stop. I'm not sure what he means by stop. Stop altogether, wait to see what happens, and start it again. But I'll tell you, at that point, to me, that would be way too late. If you detect airborne asbestos, it's too late. And the other thing is, just a final comment, and I appreciate Mr. Mayor, Assistant Mayor Ray, friend, guy, that I guess I would find it very difficult to understand how anybody would want to rent an apartment adjacent to this former future fund, Superfund site, that close. And I also would hope and pray that Township committee people, representatives of the town, would never, ever permit construction on that site for residential units to go up. To me, that's wrong. It's very dangerous. And I find it very unbelievable that we would subject people to that potential danger. I know it may not be the love canal, but you never know. You know, DEP people, and the results have never come back from them either, as far as I know, that PRISM asked for certain, the environmental firm did some sampling. I don't know what the technique they use on sampling. I don't know where they sampled, how many places they sampled, but results had not even come back on that. So I would just caution you to think very strongly about the potential dangers of that site. I thank you for your time, and have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kieran Pillion, Jr.
Could you spell your last name and first name for me, please?
Sure. P as in Peter, I-L-L-I-O-N. That's my last name. My first name is Kieran. Mr. Pigeon knows me.
I do. Very well. Good to see you.
I saw your wife last year or the year before at Ocean City at a CLE convention.
Oh, that you mentioned that, yes.
Yes. The first name is Kieran. K as in King, I-E-R-A-N. I'm a junior. I'm here on behalf of my mother, Helen T. Pillion, who lives at 1815 Long Hill Road. And I just listened to Mr. George Murray's comments about the Tifa site presentation by PRISM Capital, and I agree 100% with what he said. We moved to Long Hill Township back when it was called Passaic Township in 1968. My parents have lived there ever since. It's a great township. I like the way it has remained rural in character. I'd like to see that continue going into the future. But I'm not going to dwell on that issue right now, because I think Mr. Murray made a very good presentation. What I'm going to move on to is the issue of the bids regarding the sewer treatment plant. I realize you're at the point where you're now going to ask for proposed bids, and you're putting it up for a public referendum. This past December of 2016, there was a very good, detailed, in-depth article on December 26th in the New York Times, December 26th, 2016, which analyzed the pros and cons and the current status of municipalities when they take public assets, whether it be water or sewer, and privatize them. And one of the towns featured in the story in New Jersey, because it also included towns and cities throughout the nation, was Bayonne, and it hasn't worked out very well for Bayonne. The gist of the story is you have a for-profit company coming in to take over, and they need to make a greater profit than a municipality does when they run it. And as we all know, gentlemen, there is no free lunch. If there needs to be upgrades, they're going to be paid for by the taxpayers through rates or assessments. I think when you give up control of a public asset like your sewer, you're losing a very important asset. And many of the towns that were reported in this very good in-depth article, which perhaps you could look up and maybe connect a link to on your webpage, many of them are trying to buy back those very assets they sold 5 to 7 years ago at rates that the Wall Street folks think are 2 and 3 times what they paid when they bought them from the town. So I think we have to do a little more research on that issue, and I would encourage all of you to Google that article, the New York Times, December 26, 2016. If you put in public-private sewer and water sale, you'll get the article. It's excellent. I think it's well balanced, but I don't recall, and I may be a little biased, but I don't recall anybody saying it's really worked out for them. And I realize you're putting it up on a referendum, but I think we have an obligation to educate our citizens and our taxpayers what they may be facing, and that's why I'm asking that you put it up as a link on the Township website. That's all I'm going to have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On a practical matter, do you need to be a subscriber to the New York Times to get it?
I don't think you do. I think there's a back door. If you go to Google, I mean, I've tried it recently, you get the article. In fact, what I'm going to do is I have a copy of the article. I will mail it to, is it Deborah?
Yes.
I'll mail it to Deborah.
Well,
so you'll be covered no matter what.
I think in the New York Times you get 20 free articles a month, something like that. There's some limited number you can get.
We wouldn't be able to redistribute that, by the way.
You could get permission to redistribute.
If we got correct,
right.
We'd have to get permission from them in order.
But I think it's that important an article.
Right.
Certainly.
And that's fair.
We can link to it.
That's fair. Absolutely. We can link to it, and if it works,
Definitely.
Everyone all right?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tom O'Leary from Millington. Just a quick question, in terms of the Tifa site, do you guys know if it's like one lot or is it multiple lots?
It's
one lot.
One lot.
I believe it's one lot. Yeah.
Including the Superfund site.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm asking the question, I'm just going to put this out there just for your consideration, just you might want to look into the issue is, yeah, I've appeared before the board a couple times, and you may recognize me, but I'm a construction lawyer. I represent a lot of developers, and it's been my experience developers typically they form a single purpose entity to develop a site, and I'm sure that's what Prism did here. Sure. Then when they develop it, they're going to sell it to whatever, and they can certainly. And then the question is, are they going to, a new buyer is not going to take title to the Superfund or the encapsulated area, so then you wind up with an entity that's basically holds title in an area that's basically judgment proof. I've had, I represented a developer, did a 760,000 foot square shopping center, built a road part of it, and there were retaining walls that alongside the road started moving. Long story short, they sell the center. The new buyer didn't take title of the road, and guess whose problem the road was? The town. And so I think I just want to put that out there if you guys thought, because I don't know if you looked at I don't know what the deed says, but I just want to put that out there just for some consideration. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kieran, I forgot, I apologize, I didn't get your last name. I found the article very quickly, just blah, blah. It's December 24th.
December 24th. I knew it was around Christmas time.
That's right. So December 24th, for anybody who wants the article, it is the article on the Bayonne, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. We actually, the Bayonne, well, Brendan just left. We actually had a discussion with the group that was involved in the Bayonne, I'll call it fiasco. It was not a sale, it was a O&M or
operations and management.
Correct. So they retained ownership, but the other company did it. And I mean, I'm sure you can get the background in the article, but it was, you're right, it was a classic example of ugliness at its finest. So, thank you. Any other comments?
John Bangs, Millington. Hello, good evening.
Hey, John.
The Tifa site, River Road, I don't know whether it was ever given up to the Tifa, what am I trying to say, the deed or not, but River Road runs right through the Tifa site. Okay, originally in about 1937, there were two houses on it. I know two people that lived in one of those houses. River Road continues north up to the Millington Post Office and traverses the railroad tracks there, where they closed off the crossing just within the last year and a half. That is River Road. And River Road ends at the back end of the Millington Post Office. And if you look at the old maps, you'll see it runs clean through it. And at some point in time, the town had to give up the right of that paper road to the deeds,
right,
or to the deed. And
they do it by ordinance, but they would vacate the public's right.
I know, but you may,
Correct, exactly.
you may look back and find that never happened. Okay, and I can almost...
Prism has a problem at that point.
Excuse me?
Prism has a problem at that point.
Well, I think the town may still own it, quite frankly.
Well, we don't own it. We may have the right of the public to...
We have the paper right as much as we do Mercer to operate it and maintain it, do whatever is necessary. We can even pave it.
That's correct.
And subsequently, that divides the deed in half. Okay, it takes the middle out of the whole thing. And it doesn't even affect the toxic waste dump, the OU1 EPA site that's there now, that is surrounded by the chain link fence. The road actually itself is still there and is paved. It's just incorporated into the buildings so that it looks like it's part of the buildings. But if you leave River Road, you'll see two gigantic flower pots that are used for anti-terrorist stuff in the city. They're huge. They're probably 8 feet in diameter and 6 feet tall and filled with dirt and gravel. If you leave River Road and continue on up River Road, you'll find that it goes, you'll have the new Tifa building on your left-hand side and the old Tifa building on your right-hand side, and River Road continues all the way up till you get to, I believe it's Old Mill Road, that comes in and crosses the top of the site that's there, and that's on Tifa's property also. And River Road then continues to the right of the parking lot, that's the town parking lot, crosses over the railroad tracks and continues right on up to Millington train station. If by ordinance that road was never given to Tifa, we still own it. And they can't build on it until we can actually relieve them of the liability or the problems of that road going through that site.
If there's still, if I can just clarify, if there's still a right-of-way that was never vacated by ordinance, they could build on it. They would just have to build outside of that right-of-way. So they would have to redesign any plan that they propose.
Correct. It goes right through the middle of their whole project.
Yep.
And however wide it is, if it's as wide as River Road, it just continues on through. And it has a little zig and a zag in it, a S-turn. So it literally splits their property in two. And the one half, which would be on the western side, would be way too small to build on. And the right half, which is the building that runs along Division Avenue, as known as 50 Division Avenue, And in fact, the other building may be even known as something River Road, but doesn't have a legal address. But it's right now known as 50 Division Avenue, where it could be subdivided up into 50 Division Avenue and something River Road. The two houses that were on River Road were almost exactly where the power plant is for 50 Division Avenue, or the old power plant, and the new building where the gymnasium is that they threw everybody else out of, that was the second piece of property on the left-hand side. Two separate private homes owned by Fred and Angelina, I think her name's Gianelli. And they moved from there to further down on River Road, where they continued to live out their entire lifetime until they ended up in a CCRC, a Continuous Care and Retirement Community. And I remember talking to them endlessly on what Millington used to look like previous to the development of that site. And they could actually give you where the ponds were, where the trucks are buried, where the stuff is that they were dumping in back there. But unfortunately, they'd probably be in their hundreds by now, 110 or 120 years old. And I was always interested in history. That's why I got involved in this. But there is a website that's known as Historical Photos, I believe it is. Somebody else might be able to correct me on this. Historicalphotos.com. You can actually see River Road going right through the complex with the two homes that are there. So if we look back through our records and find out that that road was by ordinance never given to the people who own the property or whomever is involved with the property now, may not allow them to build there at all, point blank.
Well, that's...
Whatever they do on their property, and they don't have any approvals, they haven't filed any applications, there's nothing before the Township Committee or the Planning Board. They would have to go before the Planning Board for at least the site plan, and the Planning Board would have to deal with that question.
But if somebody does their due diligence and finds out that River Road still exists as a paper road, then it would not allow, they would subdivide their property in two different halves.
And the Planning Board could require them to improve it if
They would have to work around that.
But the road still exists there, and the way they have it proposed and the proposals that they put forth to everybody so far shows that that is going to be their exit driveway out of their facility and onto Haas Road, which then is almost directly opposite River Road, which is then, why should I turn left and right on Division Avenue and hassle with all that traffic and just not blow down River Road at X number of miles an hour with 200 occupied units there, each one of them with 2 cars. That's 400 cars. If half of them decide to go down River or decide to exit that direction, we're looking at, a big mess. And one way or the other, this is poor planning and needs to be looked at more critically. With a more jaundiced eye as just to let's develop it. I think a lot more forethought needs to go into it, and especially with what we're dealing with and some of the unusual diseases that have cropped up in this town that have not cropped up in other towns. And they seem to be continuous in this town. My wife being one of them, she's 1/10 of 1% of the world's population gets what she got. And then we also have a former mayor who ended up with multiple myeloma, which is about the same thing my wife had, but it falls either into the cancerous or non-cancerous form. His fell into the cancerous form. In our area over by Millington, there are numerous cases of people with cancer. I could name a dozen of them easily. And subsequently, most of them are female, but I can think of at least one that's male and was in his teens when he came down with it, which is, again, unusual.
Thank you, John.
I understand. We're asking that or anybody to come in here and strip the top off that toxic waste dump. We're asking to open up Pandora's box. And so anything that the town council or the rest of the town can do, to try and mitigate the situation would be a plus. And yes, there are deed restrictions.
I think the key is what Jack has just pointed out. We have nothing to look at. We have nothing to comment on.
I understand, but if it's not them, it's going to be somebody else. It's just a matter of they see a huge piece of land that's developable, And reality has it they failed in West Orange. If other companies come in, they had the Edison battery plant that they went bankrupt on, and another company had to come in and spend $13 million to bail them out. Is that what's going to happen here? You know, that's the other question, and any other developer. So if you're looking at bonding situations, I would look at bonding as probably the most critical part and make it into the hundreds of millions of dollars, because that's what it's going to cost to clean that place up in this time frame, 2017. It took them 70 years to get it cleaned up, and they finally got it cleaned up around 2005 or 2016. They finally got it capped, and it was taken off the EPA's Superfund records, upon which it's only been capped for, what's that come to, 8 years? Okay, maybe a little more. And needless to say, now you're going to let a developer go in and just go wild with a backhoe, which is ridiculous. I mean, the EPA spent millions of dollars getting that place to where it's at least not killing people. And they put up the new wall along the river. They entombed the top of it. They did lots and lots and lots of work. And they came down here and they paved South Avenue a couple of years ago because they found out that there was
South Main,
I'm sorry, that there was over 4 feet of exposed asbestos in every car that drove down there. The person is now contaminated with asbestos. They brought it home to their kids and their family. Along with it has cadmium, it has nickel, it has mercury, and it has arsenic in it. There's a large volume of arsenic behind the speeding mark that you can walk right through if you want to. You can just, walk around. There's just a chain link fence that has no sides or anything else, just one piece. You can walk around the back side of it, and you're walking in arsenic, enough that it's going to kill you and probably half the town if they ever got involved with it. So we're dealing with some serious stuff.
Thank you,
John. It takes serious consideration before we just say, we'll listen to PRISM. Do they even know what they're getting into? I don't think so. And I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but it's just
John, thank
I
you.
get involved
Thank you.
with it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Dennis, the man that brings great weather for the street fair.
I hate to spend time doing a rebuttal of Mr. Banks' observations, but fact is that the road that used to run through there that he refers to as River Road, actually it was called Main Street at the time, had about 8 or 9 separate lots on it. Those obviously have been consolidated into the one large 12-acre lot that we are looking at today, and the street must have been vacated in that process. Now, in the past 30 years, there have been at least 4 changes of ownership of that property, possibly more. Each one of them was accompanied by title insurance, and I am sure that the title insurance guy knows for sure that that one large lot does not have a paper street running through it. Easy enough to check. I'm sure PRISM has checked that. If they haven't already, they will. I don't think this is a concern.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You liked it, didn't you?